It's everything Queensland footy.
Good bold football from the Brisbane Lions.
That's a big one for the Suns.
This is
Redacted.
Northern Exposure.
Hello and welcome
Yes,
to a Northern Exposure special, the first ever Northern Exposure Round in Review shortcast for round one of the 2025 AFL season. My name is Jack Fulham, my co-host, who usually anchors the main body of the podcast. He's just given me the crumbs. He's just given me here's a little side project you can work on. The great Nick Davis. Nick, welcome.
Hello, Jack. That sounded magnificent. I'm so proud of you. Listen to you. I mean, look, I usually add the W in front of anchor, and I've been proud to do that for a long time, but it's all W's coming your way, my friend. I'm loving this so far, and yeah, we figured that here at Northern Exposure, we just expose you to a bit more footy because, I mean, that's what the market wants now. They want more content, so we're going to bring it to you. But so this will only just be the footy. We're looking back at round one this week, but I've got to make sure, Jack, because we've got a very good product in the main body. There's no doubt about it, and the big tease still coming up that we will be revealing the new home ground this week. But what I do want to say is that we can't tread on toes here. We can't go into main body territory. So the moment we start moving into more theoretical territory, we got to move on to the next game. This is just pure footy here.
Okay, for both of us that love tangents, this is going to be a battle, but we're sticking football results. Just before we start with the results, let me make a public service announcement. Unlike just about every other football medium out there, we are a cane corns free zone. So stick around.
Right.
You will not hear any corn. All right, let's get stuck into the action. And let's go to the game that is most fresh in our memories. And it was the last game of round one between the West Coast Eagles and the Gold Coast Suns. And what a happy start for the Suns.
Ooh, that's a happy horn, baby. That is a happy horn from the West. Jack, we could not have asked for a better start to the season.
Absolutely. There were doubts on the Gold Coast Suns coming into this, the way that they'd recruited. Did they pay overs to get guys like John Noble and Dan Rioli into the club? Well, you can definitely say, no, they did not pay overs to get Dan Rioli into the club, especially in that first half when the game was there to be won. Dan Rioli dominated, had 21 touches just cruising around off half-back, got forward and kicked a couple of goals, and it seemed every time they had a really nice, crisp passage of play through the middle of the ground, Dan Rioli was involved. So a great start for him. Ben King, the big Goliath up forward, fifth in the Coleman medal
The
last
King of
year.
Kings.
Oh, wasn't he fantastic? Took a Mark of the Year contender in round one, sat on the shoulders of the Eagles' Harry Edwards. Beautiful mark, kick five, was in it all day, Dickie. What'd you make of his performance?
You can clearly see what happens when he gets a mismatch, and he is going to absolutely devour his opposition. Now, it definitely sends a warning shot to the rest of the competition that when Big Ben is on, he's one of the best going around. We saw his stats from last year, and he needed to come out of the blocks hard and fast. And, you know, we make the comparisons with his brother all the time, but you can see from the delivery that he was getting to. Now, again, we knew West Coast weren't going to serve up the biggest challenge. It's a banana peel game, but when you've got delivery coming down your throat from, well, Noah Anderson, 36 touches, incredible. Matty Rowell looked back to where he should be. The way he was that ball coming out of the middle, that's the game that he plays.
The thing that impressed me about Matty Rowell was the way that he was covering the ground too. Because we've seen him in the past, like, yes, contested ball is his one wood, but he was moving very freely across the ground, which hasn't always come easy for Matty Rowell. So a positive start for him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, and to have that midfield group, and then, of course, me being spurred on by Big Witsy, 68 hit outs. You obviously know I'm disappointed in that number, but look,
just one more.
Again, one more big fella. But that's exactly, look, it felt, in retrospect, it could look like a warm-up match. It could look like, you know, a bit of a waffle team there, but well, West Coast have definitely improved since last year, but we've also got confidence going into a whole bunch of goals. When Ben Long pops up with 4 goals, you've got Rogers and Reed down forward too. They needed to get clunks early. They needed to get on the scoreboard, and it's a team building win, the biggest win in Gold Coast history, which is something very special. But at the same time, this is exactly how they needed to start their 2025 campaign.
And especially to do it on the road where they struggled so much last year. I think it took them until their last or second last game on the road last year to get their first win, to do it first up on the road over in the West, where we know it's a rebuilding West Coast. You know, there's been a hell of a lot of upheaval there, but you still would have fancied a better effort out of the West Coast Eagles under their new coach with, you know, the talent that's come in the door, Lam Baker and Jack Graham from the Tigers. You thought West Coast would have put a little bit more up, but they were just put to the sword by a very, very efficient Suns team. You touched on Ben Long before. Looked fantastic. He's almost had a Calamarchi level career renaissance as a forward. Kicked 4 on the weekend. They swung him forward middle of last year, and he had some really positive games. I think he kicked 4 against the Dons last year and kicked like 2s and 3s in a couple of other games. So he's proving to be very effective as a forward. And just before we move on to the next game, Dickie, big shout out to a couple of the academy kids. Jake Rogers kicked 3, looked really dangerous. And Ethan Reed spent some time up forward, the big key position swingman. Looked good, took a few grabs. Kick straight. He looks like he's going to be a real player for the future.
No, yeah, exactly right. And just, again, to see Gold Coast kids dominating for the Gold Coast, very happy with that. Again, now there's a lot of little bit of nuances I want to touch on, but that's not what this podcast is about, Jack. I want to say that the Gold Coast Suns, for the first time ever, were clinical, and I'm going to leave that there. Some real sort of left brain sort of stuff there. We leave that in this podcast. So, look, the Suns, perfect start to the season. Next up.
Oh, next up. Am I deciding?
I'll let you decide. I think we'll go to the one that we want to go to here. We'll start with our Queensland teams first. The Lions. Well,
Brisbane
Chris
Lions.
Chris Fagan said that this is one of his team's best wins ever. Now, I've heard him already talk about last year's win over the Gold Coast Suns when they were debilitated. We look at their finals campaign, but for what they were able to serve up from their incredibly interrupted last 1 to 2 weeks, plus Charlie Cameron going down before the game, personal stuff with Sam Day as well. This was an incredible team effort that if they hadn't have won a premiership last year, we probably, may have been giving them a lot more credit for what they did.
Yep, it's the kind of win that really galvanises a playing unit. Not that they need much galvanising; they're the reigning premiers, but Sydney did everything they were supposed to do. The things that tactically they were torn to shreds with on grand final day, they fixed up. They tagged Lachie Neale. Zorko, despite being one of the best players on the ground, copped more attention. They weren't able to move the footy like they did last September. The Swans really dug in, but it just goes to show how good a team the Brisbane Lions are, because they found a way to get a result. They lost Brandon Starcevich early with another concussion, which makes it 3 concussions in the last 12 games to Brandon Starcevich, which is a big point of concern.
Yeah, it is. And again, we only spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, and it's when you get into the territory of... See, now again, we can't really measure the impact of the knock there that he received when he clashed with Justin McInerney. Now, McInerney's already been put in the book for 3 weeks for that one there. And it's funny looking at it. It was... I don't know how that's 3 weeks. But I understand why, but this is really dangerous territory for Starcevich, and I don't want to overplay this too much, but when something like that is doing some damage... I think we might...
Worse, didn't it?
It did. I think we're going to have to start seeing Starcevich put in cotton wool. I think maybe, and again, he's hard as a cat's head. He will want to be out there. He's a ferocious defender, but right now his personal health is going to be the number one priority. So I actually wouldn't expect to see him for a couple of weeks until he's really looked closely at. 3-12 is worrying in any sport. But speaking to the depth of this Brisbane Lions side, now, again, Starcevich is gone. The Grug, Kai Lohman, he went down with an ankle as well. So they were challenged. As you said, Lachie Neale was thoroughly tagged. But still, the amount of depth in this team, Zach Bailey pops up with 4 goals. Now, he didn't have the best year by his standard last year, but out of nowhere. And this is the post-Joe Danaher era as well. We wanted to know where the goals are going to come from. They were found. And then, well, we've got another Ashcroft. We've got another Ashcroft.
Big Leviticus, he was meant to start as the substitute. Charlie Cameron pulling out late meant that Levi Ashcroft came into the starting side. And boy, oh boy, wasn't he good. Had the 21 disposals on debut. He is so clean, so silky, just like his brother Will, who also dominated. If you're a Lions fan, you are going to be salivating at the prospect of seeing those two tear teams apart for the next 10 to 15 years. It happened. It's the luck of the draw with father-sons. Some club legends have stronger swimmers than others. Looking at you, the fathers of St Kilda. But
oh boy,
they are absolutely incredible talent. The two Ashcroft brothers, and Levi looked like he had already played 100 games of AFL football. Just the composure out there. Now, and speaking of composure, we get to our mate Little Dane Zorko, who at 35 years of age, I think he turns 36 this year, is once again in the best players on the ground. Kicked a crucial goal in that last quarter. Just like a fine wine, getting better with age, Zorks.
Yeah, it's sensational. And Jimmy Bostock, the needle guy, needs a fair bit of credit here to keep this man on the park. But LeBron Zorko just continues to do Zorko things. So that's another box ticked. And again, this will help welcome back a raft of backline players too. I want to give a bit of credit here to young Logan Morris, just for. Now remember, this is a second-year player. Now. Receives a footy on the half-back line with 30 seconds to go in the game. Now, this is a 19-year-old kid, maybe because he's a premiership player, but does enough to draw the 50-metre penalty as well. The composure of that young man in that moment, especially when Sydney were rampaging, they had the momentum there. They'd missed an opportunity, but that was their opportunity to take the game, and Morris, he outsmarted them. He outfooted them. And I find that just incredible, the level of that professionalism and just gamesmanship, as we sort of talked about in the latest full body of the podcast. To see that from Logan Morris, I was just delighted to see.
Yeah, it was a very mature professional performance by the Brisbane Lions that just found a way to win despite Lachie Neale being tagged out of the game. Just the 10 touches he wore James Jordan as a backpack all day, and Jordan did a fantastic job, but as we've seen so often, if Lachie Neale doesn't get you, Hugh McCluggage will, or one of the Ashcroft brothers, or a Cam Rayner will bob up. They just bat so deep in that midfield, and that will probably be what Chris Fagan is the most proud of, is that despite all the adversity, they just found a way to get it done. So the Lions, they move into a game against West Coast this Sunday at the Gabba, where they'll unfurl their premiership flag and take on the Eagles, which, based off current form, should be a lot easier than Saturday's match at the MCG.
Yeah, this would be an absolute celebration of a game. So I'd imagine the tickets are already sold out at this point. But a great opportunity for all of Brisbane to come and celebrate this weekend. Yeah, look, as I said, we won't be seeing Brandon Starcevich. Hopefully Charlie Cameron will be back for this one, so the crowd can get their first rendition of Country Roads. But look, for our Queensland teams, Jack, and the ones we care about the most, very, very exciting stuff. A great way to start season 2025. Now to the rest of the round, because again, we've been going through our predictions, as you'll hear later in the week when we look to the round ahead. I think you and I were pretty much bang on the money. Except for, it's the result we desperately wanted, but couldn't believe we got. We'll go all the way back now to Thursday night, Jack, when your Tigers. Oh, your Tigers.
The Tigers pinched a game that they had no right to be winning. It was simply blessed. As a Richmond fan, we've been sold the rebuild. We're all invested in the rebuild. We've gone to the draft last year, got the 7 first-round picks, the feature of which is Sam Lawler, the number 1 pick, who was incredible on Thursday night. But not in our wildest dreams did we expect to be knocking off Carlton, who we all kind of expect to challenge for the top 4 this year, or at least the top 8, on a Thursday night to start the season. It was just magical. And as much as I'd like to say that the Richmond Tigers, they played well, they did everything they needed to do, but Carlton lost that game more than Richmond won it. It was
100% they did. Yeah.
diabolical performance from the Blues. They were the amount of drop marks in defence in that second half is unbelievable. And for a team that has finals experience, that has a lot of players that are getting over that 50 to 60 game threshold, they made a lot of basic errors, a lot of handling errors, and when the heat were applied to them, they turned to ash.
They did. They crumbled. And again, now this is footy in March, and I mean, mind you, this is probably about the time that season, maybe in a couple of weeks' time, back in the day, a season would start. And there was definitely a theme, especially with night footy. You can really see the shine on the ball. It's slippery. There was talk the grass was lower or something like that. But when the footy is just pinging around like a little cake of soap, it came down to fundamentals. Blues players going to ground, not keeping their feet, and as simplistic as it sounds, the Tigers players wanted it more. It just came down to that. And you look at that last passage of play that led to the game winner. Blues players on the ground, the Tigers just surged it forward. And it's amazing how simplistic footy can be sometimes. And that was a story. One team just wanted that game more. So well done to Richmond. I mean, it's a bit of a shame if I think back to the amount of flags you've won recently, that I wanted you to have a little bit of a lower patch for a while, but at the same time, like it's already one of the great footy stories of the year.
It was beautiful scenes, and we know that the Richmond fans are vocal when they get to sing, a song after the win, and that yellow and black bit. The yellow and black bit from Thursday night was possibly the loudest I've ever heard. It was ferocious. So brilliant performance.
Jack, that's your first warning. You get into theoretical territory there.
So we're getting into main body territory, which
the main body
is probably a very.
This is emotion. This is an emotionless podcast. This is just pure football.
This is meat and potatoes. This podcast, which takes us into our next game yesterday at the Adelaide Oval, a 11:35 a.m. start on Queensland time, which was nice to get home from, going and doing the gym rounds and going out for breakfast, and then being able to sit straight down at 11:30 on the couch and watch a game of football between the Adelaide Crows and the St Kilda Saints. And off the basis of just one game, small sample size, the Crows are going to be a force to be reckoned with in 2025. They looked fantastic. They blew the Saints off the park. The Saints did look a little bit underdone, but that Adelaide attack of Darcy Fogarty, Riley Tilthorpe, and Josh Rochelle as well, Taylor Walker down there, they look like they had so many options. They moved the ball with such speed that, Saints, and the Saints are, we've talked a lot in the past about their defensive, or about their attacking failings, but they've always had a sound and fundamental defence, but they were not able to get set yesterday. The Crows just tearing them apart through the middle of the ground, and giving their forwards so much time and space to lead into. And in the end, I was kind of surprised that the margin was only 63 points. I say only because it felt like they dominated the contest more than that.
Yeah, they did, and you're right. If anything, St Kilda come out of this quite nicely. But I spoke before this game that this was the sort of footy purgatory derby. Only one of these teams will emerge as a force in 2025, and we saw the pre-season form Adelaide had, and even that win up at Brighton Homes Arena against Brisbane. We know we don't try and read too much in, but they've got a real point to prove this season, and I think they smelt blood early. And I mean, what you have to do though is you have to look at the walk-in goals, the amount of goals they scored from inside 30 metres. Like St Kilda's defence was an absolute shambles. I don't, we don't go coaches on this podcast, but Ross Lyon will have to have a decent thing. The players need to have a good look at themselves here, because this was, look, a lot of teams have been shellacked round one, and I really do anticipate a response. But look, we knew this was going to be a big year from the Crows, and you can see Walker leading really well. He's guided these forwards over the last few years, and now they're starting to play within his image. And again, Isaac Rankin, look, he'll be all Australian this year. There's no, if he can stay on the park all year, not get rubbed out for any reason, he is absolutely going to be an all Australian. I think this will be his best season yet.
Yeah, and another player that has really emerged for the Crows is Jake Saligo through the middle of the ground. Like, he looks bigger this year, he looks stronger, and he's just taken his game to a new level with the 29 disposals and 1 goal yesterday. Matt Crouch, one of the older campaigners, was also good. He was the leading possession getter on the ground with 31 and a goal. And they've recruited really well in the off-season. They brought in Isaac Cumming and James Peatling from GWS. Now, they're not your A-grade players, but they play a role along with Alex Neil-Bullen, who came across from Melbourne, who we know is a premiership player, very dependable, good defensively. One of the blokes that you really try and build a club and a culture. He's not going to be going out there and having 40 and kicking 5, but he's a solid player, and you're never going to be disappointed with what you get from Alex Neil-Bullen.
No, absolutely not. So I think the Crows, again, now this is a team, again, maybe a soft start, and we'll learn a lot more about them in the next couple of weeks, but this was absolutely the perfect way they could open their 2025 account. So, again, I'm going to give them full ticks for this weekend.
Yeah, and, pretty dark day for the Saints, but one high point was Nasiah Wanganeen Miller. I always stumble on his surname.
There's a lot of vowels, mate. There's a lot of vowels, I understand.
He was incredible across half-back, and his right foot is an absolute dagger through the middle of the ground. Just the way and it's that way that he effortlessly hits these like 35 to 40 metre bullet passes that travel maybe, less than a couple metres off the ground. It's like poetry to watch.
Oh, it's sensational. So, good. I'm really glad you could find one happy takeaway from the Saints. Not insipid, but not far off performance.
A lot of room for improvement from the Saints.
I'd say so. Jack, the other Sunday fixture, well, we're wondering if there'd be more than 15,000 in the crowd, but no, for those that did, they did turn up. GWS are definitely a force to be reckoned with. They've got revenge on their mind. I was watching Toby Green, and it's the same way I talked about Dane Zorko last year. He's now the player in the league that I want to have a premiership medal around his neck.
Yep.
Absolutely deserves one. Already been an All-Australian captain, but just a magnificent player, a magnificent leader, and the way, he enforced himself upon the contest yesterday just to will his team over the line when the game was in the balance.
Yeah, spare a thought for Max Gawn, the Melbourne captain. Pretty much the consensus best ruckman in the competition. He had a massive day yesterday, matched up against Lockie Keefe, which we know Lockie Keefe, not a full-time ruckman and just doing his best to compete, but Gawn absolutely towed him up all day. And at the end of the match, with a minute to go, Lockie Keefe finds the ball in his hand to go and kick the winning goal. And you just felt like, you felt sorry for Max Gawn in that moment.
You did,
yeah. Not too much more he could have done.
No, he did everything he could. I'm very pro Max Gawn. I think for everything that's happened around Melbourne the last few years, he's come out of this. His leadership's continued to shine through in darker times. Getting theoretical territory, but disappointing. I mean, great to see Christian Petrarca back on the field. Surprised he wasn't in the midfield towards the end of the game, but again, just a good footy story to see him back.
Look really good. Harry Sharp, the former Brisbane Lion, one of our favourites.
Yeah, absolutely.
Forward kicked a goal, had some really nice moments through the middle of the ground. So positive signs for Harry Sharp, and it's good that he's been able to land somewhere where he's going to play regular senior football because like the Lions, they've had so much depth over the last few years that guys like Harry Sharp haven't been able to break into the side. For the Giants, Stephen Cornelio had one of the best games I've seen him play in a while. Good through the middle of the ground and bobbed up with 3 alongside Toby Green. Finn Callahan still good, not as damaging as last week, and it really seemed to be
the value still high like that. Value still right through the roof. Oh,
absolutely. It really seems that the best way to slow down the Giants' game style is to just add a little bit of water because, stodgy conditions at the MCG, a bit windy, very rainy. We saw those conditions affect the Grand Prix over at Albert Park. They weren't able to get that orange tsunami going as well, and Melbourne did a real good job in being able to sort of curtail them and make it a real contest. So, plenty of good signs. The Giants are going to be the team to beat this season. They're going to go very close. And look, I know it's still very early days, but after 2 performances from the Giants, I reckon we can probably pencil them into a top 4 spot.
Oh, you'd have to think so. They do have a difficult run coming up, though. Not many games at home, so they're just going to have to get through this block, and the fixture will be largely against them this year. But so far, they've shown magnificent signs. So yeah, no, I had them sitting in the top 4 at the start of the year, and I can cement that now after just 2 rounds of footy.
Yep. All right, next game. Let's have a look at Friday night's game. I know it was a game of great interest to you, being a Bombers supporter. The Hawks and the Bombers. The Hawks ran out 26-point winners at the MCG in front of how many did they get there? It was probably close to 80.
Yeah, just over 80,000. So I think the 7th highest Hawthorn attendance of all time. Magnificent for this fixture. So the biggest ever between these two sides, just showing the interest between. But also shows when two supporter bases truly believe. Now, it's my second warning for getting theoretical territory, but look, it was Hawthorn. At the end of the day, they took their chances, and their ability to counter-attack. Any time the Bombers got a breakthrough, Hawthorn would just be able to punch back straight away, and it kept Essendon at arm's length all night. And just a few mistakes from Essendon here and there, and Hawthorn, they've shown they're a really good side. And it's funny, just in the space of one pre-season, and we wondered if the hype would get to their heads or anything like that. We wanted to see Hockball 25, but I saw. We still saw the celebrations. We still saw the sort of fun-loving style. But I saw maturity from the Wizard. I saw maturity from Ginnivan. I saw Big Marbs like making himself, showing that he wants to be the leading man.
The thing that which you have to just tip your cap to Sam Mitchell, is watching Marbior Chol. The flying for the footies is great, the work rate around the ground, but it is the chasing and tackling. Multiple times on Friday night, I saw him chase someone 80, 90 metres down the ground, effect tackles, put pressure on. And he played under, a couple of very good coaches, Stewie Dew at the Gold Coast Suns, Damien Hardwick at the Suns and at the Tigers. And those two coaches could not get Marbior Chol to add that to his game. But under Sam Mitchell, he's got that game. He is trying as hard as he possibly can, and it's 100% effort. And yeah, you really have to tip your cap and just appreciate what Sam Mitchell's doing with this side, because Essendon were very, very brave on the night. I thought they kept, every time Hawthorn looked like they were going to blow the game away, Essendon were able to respond. Got to be impressed with Isaac Kako as well in his first AFL game. He's an instant cult hero, kicked that soccer goal through from about 35 out. Really clever finish. He's going to be a player for you guys.
I was watching around the contest, and I got the same sort of rush as when an Anthony McDonald would be around the contest, because even 15 metres away from the ball, you knew something was about to happen. Your eyes just went to him, and I would hate to be a back pocket knowing that man is anywhere, because his burst of speed and his ability to just keep himself in a dangerous position at all times, he would be a nightmare to play on, and I would not feel great about exiting a ball out of defensive 50 when I know that man's around. For the forward pressure, and that's something I haven't seen from Essendon for a very long time, forward pressure. So obviously it can't come down to one player, but I got full ticks for Kako in his first game. And look, the game, unfortunately, and I wasn't happy about the hit, but the moment Jordan Ridley was concussed, Ridley has been he has been the backbone of our back six for a very long time, and the moment he went down, the system fell apart. I think that's where Essendon struggles. The moment one thing gets out of place, we still haven't got the systems to back it up, and all of a sudden that pressure goes on to Ben Mackay. Kyle Langford is forced to, we don't know where to put him, and then we just couldn't get that delivery down forward. Hawthorn's backs I thought was sensational. They completely nullified any impact that Nate Caddy tried to have. Look, the best game I've seen from Jai Caldwell, and he's absolutely one of Essendon's top 6 players, I'd say. That's ever since we brought him across from the Giants, he's been magnificent for us. Nick Martin keeps going from strength to strength, and Xavier Dersman, I'll tip my hat to. We brought him in last season from Port Adelaide. We didn't know he was kind of like, no, not steak knives, but somewhere maybe we just put him on a wing, see how he'd go. But that was probably the best performance I've seen from him. And if I can see a year of consistency from him, I'll be really happy.
Beautiful. That sums up Friday night's game at the MCG. Let's have a look at Saturday. It was the first game of the Super Saturday between Geelong and the Fremantle Dockers down at Cardinia Park. And this one, while most people expected the Cats to win, it was the size of the margin that surprised a lot of people. The Cats winning by 78 points, 147 to 69. And apart from a really inspired third quarter surge from the Dockers, the Cats put them to the sword for the sort of other 3.5 quarters. Bailey Smith, his first game as a Cat, off the back of a year out of the game with an ACL injury, 32 touches, 700 metres gained and a goal. He looked unreal. They just had winners all over the field. The Dockers, really down dirty day for them because they have been tipped as a lot of people's smoky this season. We know the weather was really hot. The travel across, playing Geelong at Cardinia Park is always a tough ask, but I think they'll be pretty disappointed in what they served up.
Yeah, I mean, look, I came into the season with scepticism around Fremantle. I couldn't quite see. Now, I don't want to make this completely confirm what I was thinking, but they need. I said to you last week, these are the games that they have to at least, if they don't win, they have to at least put in a showing, and they didn't turn up. And if it hadn't been for those 4 goals in 6 minutes from young Reid, there would be absolutely nothing to write about for Fremantle. So, and look, we knew that they couldn't bring all their stars across, and that was absolutely the right choice in doing so. But it was borderline non-competitive down there at Cardinia Park, and it really shows one, why the Cats, they chased Bailey Smith hard. That was absolutely justified call. Jeremy Cameron is just one of the top 10 players in the game, reasserted himself there, and their depth and system is what is going to absolutely get them deep into September again. That was, it was, apart from, because remember, they were not bad in that preliminary final. That was one of the great games of all time. They were just down when the siren went. They've come back with a vengeance this year, and I expect Geelong, as long as they can hold injuries away, they can go deep. And then right down the forward, then you've got Paddy Dangerfield playing as a true forward. This is scary stuff, Jack.
Yeah, it really is. They are going to go very close. Fremantle, look, they had some cattle out. Hayden Young, who's an elite kicker of the football, and it really came on in leaps and bounds. Last year was missing. Shea Bolton, the superstar that's crossed in the off-season from Richmond, was missing. Michael Walters missing as well. So there is some star cattle to come back for the Fremantle Dockers, but yeah, they will be looking for a lot better effort next time out. Let's continue on Saturday. It's Saturday night at the MCG, where Collingwood bounced back from a really underwhelming opening round performance by smashing Port Adelaide 106 to 45. And I don't think anyone tipped this game to go like it did. It was embarrassing for Port Adelaide. It was the biggest loss in Ken Hinkley's coaching career of 275 games. They, from the outset, did not fire a shot. And I know this is probably, we're getting into main body territory here, but if I was the Port Adelaide Football Club, I would be bringing Josh Carr in as soon as possible and trying to start a clean slate.
Yeah, I mean, as we spoke about last week, we know that succession plans are a bit of a poison chalice. We don't know who's calling the shots, and it's tough to say. Now, we can make all these excuses for Port, but at the end of the day, we saw a Magpies outfit that were prepared to bounce back from a game that they were all very disappointed by. I listened to Scott Pendleby during the week, and they knew that they hit most of their markers last week, but were just done in by a better side. And look, coming back to the MCG, with the Magpie Army behind them, they were going to inflict some damage. Dan Houston, I love what I saw from him in his first game against his old side too. Look, we don't need to go too hard into baking Port Adelaide, but look, they were just. They were not great, and look, I was wondering if Collingwood, were possibly going to drop or stick around, but they've bounced back really well. And again, I'm just happy to see Dan McStay playing well. I know former Brisbane Lion, just to see what he's capable of out there, fully recovered from that knee. And yeah, look, the Pies are going to be bloody dangerous this year.
They are, and a former Sun who we've been watching quite closely for a few years now. Jack Lacoche has played his first game in Port Adelaide colours, and like a lot of his teammates, struggled to get near it. Did kick a goal, but yeah, not a great start in the teal, white, and black for Jack Lacoche, and they were pretty vulnerable down back as well with no Brandon Zerk Thatcher or Radigalia. Port, yeah, they're definitely on fraud watch at the moment.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, and look, I think we could. I don't know how they'll travel this year. I expect them to win a lot of games at home, and they will play Richmond this week, which they're going to need to turn around because they dropped that one. I mean, those air raid sirens will start ringing. But yeah, look, fraud watch early. Port and Freo is where I've got them, and then Jack, we go to the final game, and as they are known this week, Footscray in their 100th year. The battle of the Marvel squatters. Look, they opened their account really well. We after seeing the amount of players that left in the off season, the sort of troubles that they've had, the rumblings going on behind Luke Beveridge's closed doors. Again, it's North Melbourne, but the Dogs did what they needed to do.
Yeah, they did. A very entertaining game, this one, 113 to 97. So both teams almost crossing the ton. Nick Larkey was outstanding for North Melbourne. Kick 5. He's going to go close to another Coleman medal this year. LDU, Luke Davis-Uniacke, he's just getting better and better as he enters the prime of his career. He's probably one of the best on the night for North Melbourne. Jai Simpkin had a great game. Aaron Norton up forward, kick 3 for the Dogs. They looked pretty classy.
Yeah, they did. And again, North Melbourne were actually sensational across the board in all stats, nearly winning every category. But it's just their inability to use it when they needed to. And the Dogs have been interesting in front of goal. But again, this could be my third strike here. But you're right. We got close to 2 teams registering a ton at Marvel Stadium, which takes me back to the old glory days. And I was pretty happy to see that. But look, if I'm a North Melbourne fan, I'm disappointed, but I'm not worried. I think that's a great first showing, and I just want to see them back it up again, because if they can clock up maybe a couple of close losses like that, I reckon that's going to set them up really well for the middle third of the season.
Young Finn O'Sullivan, who very highly rated in the draft last year, played his debut game, 16 touches across halfback. He looked very composed and efficient, Finn Sullivan. So he's going to be a great pickup for North Melbourne, and good to see the impact that a guy like Luke Parker and Jack Darling as well was able to hit the scoreboard. 2 of the older recruits that they've brought in to add a bit of experience and guidance to this list. And I love the celebration and the way that when Jack Darling kicked his first goal, the way the North Melbourne fans absolutely got around him and gave him a massive ovation, and he kind of really responded with the double cobras, and it was just a really beautiful moment, because he's a guy that his best days of AFL football are a long way behind him, but was 2 games away from notching up 300 games with as a one club player, and then basically told 2 games short of 300 to pack your bags by the West Coast Eagles. So it's nice that he's found a landing spot. He's going to be able to notch up game 300, and the North Melbourne faithful have got around him with open arms.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You talked about Parker earlier. This experience they've brought into the side is going to be invaluable for their development. So, as I said, disappointing loss for them, but and you see the crowd that turned up for the game. I think North Melbourne will actually they'll scare a couple of teams this year.
Well, that'll do us for the inaugural Northern Exposure round in review for round 1. Nick Davis, thank you for joining me. We will be back for the main body on Wednesday afternoon. You can follow us on Instagram. You can follow us on TikTok. We do not have a Twitter up yet. We are coming to YouTube very soon. Watch this space, and a massive announcement on Wednesday's main body, Dickie.
Huge, and oh god, I can't wait to be creative again. It's gonna be nice. I'm going to say some weird things.
It's going to be sensational. Thank you, and we'll see you Wednesday.